believe I deserve to die. And I'm ready for that.
Cassidy Rainwater was born on June 9, 1988, in Hamilton, Missouri, USA. She was the daughter of Tracy Wass, with no known records of her biological father, suggesting Tracy's family likely played a role in raising her. In 2005, after finishing high school, Cassidy, then 17, had her first child. Due to her young age, her family adopted the baby. At this time, her mother Tracy was in a relationship with Leonard Len Couch. Though information is sparse, it is believed this relationship was abusive, and Tracy's family unsuccessfully tried to persuade her to leave Leonard. On Friday, April 13, 2007, Tracy went for a walk in the woods, an activity she enjoyed, but did not return by nightfall. As days passed without any news, her family reported her missing. Tracy was 43 years old, and Cassidy was 19. Amid the uncertainty of her whereabouts, and suspicion fell on Leonard, but the investigation yielded no conclusive evidence. In early May of the following year, a farmer spreading fertilizer in a field near the Moon Valley area of central Missouri made a startling discovery. He found what appeared to be human bones and clothing remnants, including a woman's shoe. The site was near Leonard's home and about 200 miles from the Rainwater residence. Authorities were notified, and the remains, along with several teeth, were collected for identification. Subsequent analysis confirmed the remains were Tracy's, verified by a University of Missouri anthropologist. Laclede County Sheriff Richard Rinkle mentioned that the state of the remains made determining the exact cause of death challenging. The police interviewed Tracy's close acquaintances, including Leonard, who mentioned her habit of venturing into the woods to relax or search for arrowheads, a peculiar hobby of hers. Despite the ongoing investigation, local testimonies provided little help, and the case gradually lost momentum. The sheriff confirmed that the cause of Tracy's death remained undetermined, and no arrests were made. On Saturday, May 17, 2008, Cassidy, her friends, family, and neighbors gathered at the local chapel to bid a final farewell to Tracy during her funeral service. Meanwhile, in the files of Laclede County, the case remained open. Over the years, Cassidy not only grappled with the grief and uncertainty surrounding her mother's fate, but also faced numerous challenges that eventually led her life down a troubled and unfortunate path. By her early 30s, without a stable job or a home, Cassidy found herself in dire straits. However, those close to her noted that her determination to overcome these difficulties remained strong. Around 2020 to 2021, Cassidy met a man nearly twice her age, James Phelps. James was a peculiar and somewhat frightening individual who lived on an isolated property in the middle of the woods, accompanied by Timothy Norton. Though little is known about their backgrounds, James and Timothy became friends during their time at Skyline High School, bonded by a mutual interest in the macabre. After high school, James enlisted in the Navy, leading a relatively quiet and unremarkable life. Timothy followed a similar path, also joining the Navy in the early 1990s. James moved to the forest property near Lebanon, Missouri, during the same period. Timothy had minor run-ins with the law, mostly related to bad checks and unpaid bills, indicating his difficulty maintaining employment. He had 2 failed marriages and eventually worked as a long-haul truck driver sometime in the early 2000s. After leaving his trucking job, Timothy moved in with James. The 2 men, reclusive and living in their mysterious house where Timothy's truck was often parked and served as his sleeping quarters, were viewed with suspicion by the locals. Additionally, James maintained a profile on an alternative dating site where members were interested in various practices or role-playing games, often erotic, involving bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission. How Cassidy met James remains a mystery, but it appears she trusted him, especially given her precarious situation at the time. On Saturday, July 24th, 2021, while Cassidy slept on the living room floor, James contacted Timothy, asking him to return home. During this text exchange, they coordinated a crime they were planning. What ensued was one of the most sordid stories, not only in Missouri, but across the United States. After attacking and subduing Cassidy, who was 33 at the time, they subjected her to horrific abuse, including imprisoning her in a large cage. Subsequently, as part of their twisted hobbies, the duo proceeded to photograph Cassidy and even recorded videos of the abuse. In the vast isolation of her captivity, her cries were carried away by the wind, unheard by anyone. Not long after, James and Timothy ended her life, then eviscerated and dismembered her body. The remains were stored in packages, some labeled with dates, inside the property's refrigerator. Finally, the photos and videos of Cassidy's torment were uploaded to the dark web, an obscure part of the internet that requires special authorization or software to access. This platform's design ensures user anonymity and encrypted communication routed through multiple servers. In the days following the crime, James and Timothy continued their lives as usual. However, after weeks without any news, Cassidy's family reported her missing to the police. On Wednesday, August 25th, 2021, the police quickly created a profile of Cassidy, including the last time she was seen by her loved ones. This information led investigators to trace James's house in the woods near Lebanon as one of her last known locations. That same Wednesday, a police officer visited the property for a welfare check, but found no sign of Cassidy or the occupants. On September 1st, 2021, another police officer returned to the remote residence and encountered James. According to court records, during this interview, James admitted that Cassidy had stayed with him just before her disappearance. However, he claimed she had talked about going to Colorado and that, in the middle of the night, she'd gotten into a vehicle at the end of the driveway and disappeared. During the conversation, the detective noticed parts of the property seemed dismantled, but he saw no trace of Cassidy's belongings. Days passed with no evidence, leaving the local police department frustrated, as if Cassidy had vanished without a trace. This despair ended on Thursday, September 16th, 2021, with a significant breakthrough. An anonymous online informant provided the FBI with several disturbing photographs found on the dark web. These images depicted the horrific crime committed against a young woman, including the gruesome aftermath. She was seen partially dressed and confined in a cage, while other photos showed her tied to a gantry crane, commonly used for processing deer and eviscerating them. This chilling information was immediately forwarded to the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, one of the 114 counties in Missouri established in 1944. The investigators collectively determined that the victim was Cassidy. Moreover, after examining the audio-visual material, an investigator concluded that the likely backdrop was James's house. On that same Thursday, September 16th, authorities requested 3 search warrants for the property and various authorizations to search for electronic devices. Once the court orders were issued, members of the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, with assistance from the FBI and the County Crime Scene Unit, arrived at the residence. James, identified as the primary suspect, was arrested and taken to the county detention center, while the area was secured for thorough searches. During the examination of his cell phone, 7 photographs of Cassidy, partially naked and confined in a cage, were found. On Friday, September 17th, 2021, a police officer and an FBI investigator attempted to interview James. However, he invoked his right to an attorney and refused to answer any questions. Meanwhile, the search of the property led to the horrifying discovery of what appeared to be human remains in the freezer. Some packages were marked with the numbers 24 and 7, matching the date of Cassidy's disappearance. Additionally, the gantry crane was found behind the house near the customized cage with welded pipe boxes, heavy chains, and cables typically used for large exotic animals. Nearby, skeletal remains were discovered. On September 20th, 2021, detectives interviewed Timothy in Dallas County. Timothy initially distanced himself from the case, claiming he was just a truck driver who lived in his truck when not on the road. However, after verifying that he had provided inaccurate information, Timothy was arraigned. He then confessed to knowing that Cassidy was locked in a cage at James's house. The following week, investigators focused on processing physical evidence from the crime scene. The apparent human remains were sent to a forensic pathologist, while the digital footprint from the electronic devices of both suspects was analyzed by forensic computer experts. Shortly thereafter, the morgue team confirmed the remains were Cassidy. Additionally, the exchanged messages between James and Timothy just before committing the crime were uncovered. With all the information at hand, the investigators decided to subject Timothy to a new interrogation. This time, he admitted his role in the crime, but provided a different version than what the authorities had reconstructed. According to his account, after being contacted by James and arriving at the house, he held Cassidy's legs while James suffocated her with a plastic bag over her head. Timothy then claimed that James was the one who tied her to the gantry crane and dismembered the body. He said he only helped transport the remains to the bathtub. In a completely unexpected turn of events, on October 4th, 2021, a fire ravaged much of James's house while he and Timothy were in custody. Following the necessary investigations, authorities concluded that the fire was deliberate, caused by an incendiary device placed in a mortar tube rigged with a tripwire. This incident fueled endless speculations about a case that had already captivated public horror and curiosity. The limited information released by the authorities contributed to these speculations. First, there were the images of Cassidy, leading the public to wonder if she was merely a visible victim in the tip of an iceberg involving a network distributing such content online. The informant who had provided the images was traced to Germany, though this could have been masked by a VPN. There were also rumors of an illegal human meat trafficking market. Regarding James's profile, there was speculation that the social network he used might have enabled him to contact many other potential victims. To add to the turmoil, Cassidy's tragic past and the striking similarity between her fate and that of her mother came to light. This led many to suspect a connection between the two crimes. However, the authorities soon clarified that, at least at that time, no such link existed. Interestingly, Leonard, Tracy's former boyfriend, died around that period. In an effort to address the multitude of rumors, which they said were merely spreading misinformation, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office made a social media post. The person who was then leading the department explained in the statement that investigating a crime scene was not like what is typically portrayed in TV investigation series. It couldn't be done in 15 minutes without getting dirty. He also clarified that the search for evidence required a tremendous amount of time and effort, including the meticulous analysis of the evidence in the respective laboratories. In conclusion, he detailed that it was a titanic task and, therefore, immediate results should not be expected, especially given the complex nature of the case. During his first court appearance, Timothy pleaded not guilty. However, in a surprising twist, he later detailed on camera to a local news outlet how he and James had previously sought victims, even near store premises. His revelations only deepened the intrigue surrounding the case. Despite their attempts to evade justice, both men faced charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and abandonment of a corpse. In early 2022, James secured a new public defender, experienced in representing clients likely to face the death penalty. Through this attorney, James filed a motion to dismiss the abandonment of a corpse charge. From that point, delaying tactics began, and in July 2022, James pleaded not guilty. In September 2022, prosecutors made their first attempt to seek the death penalty against him. In a clear bid to buy time, his defense filed for a change of venue. James's next court appearance was scheduled for January 20th, 2023. Meanwhile, cornered by the overwhelming evidence and his impending fate, Timothy chose to plead guilty, though only to the most serious charge in a plea deal. The remaining charges were dropped. Consequently, Timothy Norton was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of Cassidy Rainwater. In May 2023, James, who had steadfastly maintained his innocence, made a form of admission through an Alford plea, a legal provision in the U.S. criminal justice system. This plea allowed him to acknowledge that sufficient evidence existed to convict him without admitting guilt directly. James entered an Alford plea to the first-degree murder charge, his only option to avoid the death penalty. Although cameras were banned from the sentencing hearing, those present heard the Dallas County judge sentence James Phelps to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the murder of Cassidy Rainwater. To date, no arrests have been made regarding the arson incident, and no connection has been established between the murders of Tracy and her daughter. No charges have been filed in Tracy's case, and the speculations about possible links to other macabre activities remain unsubstantiated. Addressing public curiosity about Cassidy's son, an independent investigator reported that after extensive inquiries, she contacted a family member who confirmed that the victim's child is safe and well. That's the end of today's case. Thank you for joining us on The Crime Storyteller. If you're interested in more intriguing true crime stories, especially from Latin America, be sure to check out our new channel, Latin Crimes. Click the link to subscribe and explore more mysteries with us. See you next time.